Chapter 20. If you remember what Judges is about, it's as Tim Mackey from the Bible Project says, and on the thing that I'm looking at right now, Israel's total failure. And the way Hebrew text is written, it often repeats and it goes in cycles, and it's like a cycling down, right? And it gets worse and worse, and it gets to the point where it kind of says, in those days, Israel had no king, and everyone did what was right in their own eyes, right? Like that's, and so we kind of get,
21.
yeah. And so it kind of gets to that point over there. So it's kind of spiraling down. So that's kind of where we are. So these last two chapters, just like the last few that we've been in, are extremely fun and heartwarming. You know, good for the Christmas season, and so that's kind of what we're talking about today. So if you remember, what's kind of going on in Judges that is interesting is that it's written in what I would call a cheeky manner. That it doesn't really hold your hand too many times, and that so it's talking about, like, I think I have this last time we talked about how they destroyed that city of Laish, mm-hmm. and that was a Levite city, right? And so and then there was that one Levite that was kind of part of that, and that guy should be holy, but he's not. And then they destroy, like, the Levite city, which is the city of all the priests and stuff like that. And it doesn't really ever say, like, this was a bad thing. But we're kind of supposed to know, like, hey, this isn't good. And that's kind of why I say that it's kind of written in a cheeky manner, because I think sometimes we want the Bible to hold our hand and tell us how to feel about things. And if it did that, we probably wouldn't be reading it. And so the fact that it doesn't do that, we read it a lot. So it's kind of a cheeky manner, and oh yeah, in the end, right before, let's see, chapter 19, verse 30, it goes, and so it was that all who saw it said, no such deed has been done or seen from the day that the children of Israel came up out of the land of Egypt until this day. Consider it, confer, and speak up. And I think, and we talked about this last time a little bit, is that that's indicating that the children of Israel look like Egypt. You know, they look bad. They look like the baddie in the room, you know? And so, and it's using all these things that when you begin to see it, you're like, oh yeah, like, you know, talking about Egypt there, that's not good. So that's kind of where we are. The book is indicating in a cheeky way of how to look at these things, and we will go through chapter 20. So please note, I meant to look at this, and I ran out of time. And so I am nowhere near as prepared as I should be for this last little bit of the book. Shocking? Like easy there, easy. Like that's so. Yeah. Well, we could add some for Bible studies.
How about your birthday?
Yeah, my birthday. The church's birthday. The church's birthday is this Sunday. It's in the bulletin. Yeah. So the church's birthday. The church will turn 33. 33. So like that's on Sunday.
How many here were here for the 25th banquet?
Well, think about that. like that. That's yeah. It's a 20.
They haven't chased us out yet.
Yeah.
Trying.
All right. So. Well, and that brings up, that's kind of an interesting thing that you just said. Like there is a lot of new people around.
Yeah.
There is a lot of new people. And I'll continue to hawk ads. Next Wednesday will be the first Advent service. And we're
doing the meal, right?
We're doing the meal, 5:30 meal, potluck. Bring whatever you want. If you don't feel like making anything, come anyway. and we won't say anything to you, but and like that's
We'll give you dirty looks.
yeah. But no, seriously, like come on and enjoy the meal. It's the reason why we do the meal is just to be together. Like that's the reason why we do the meal. And so the next at 6:30 the service is a bunch of Christian Christmas carols, kind of get you in the mood, and a bunch of stories about Christmas. I am 90% sure that Blythe, who is a new member of the church, she is synodically trained. She was one of the lead speakers at the last National Youth Gathering, and she comes here and she teaches theology at Concordia St. Paul, and so she knows what she's doing with all that stuff, and she has been to 40 countries, I think, and so she's going to go through different Christmas characters, talk about the real Saint Nick and how it's represented in different countries, and also some weird traditions that she's taken part of in all of her travels, and also she's going to talk about like the prophecy leading up to the birth of Jesus and all that.
This is Wednesday the 6th?
This is Wednesday the 6th, yep.
Wednesday the
And so
6th.
it will be live streamed if you want to watch it later. And so like that's what's coming up, and it should be fun. It should be fun. So that's all right. Well, let's get going on this. So Judges chapter 20. So we need to hit this button, then this button, then this button,
Oh, yeah.
and we hit here. Okay.
On there.
Here we go.
I do.
So all the children of Israel came out, from Dan to Beersheba, as well as from the land of Gilead, and the congregation gathered together as one man before the Lord at Mizpah. And the leaders of all the people, all the tribes of Israel, presented themselves in the assembly of the people of God, 400,000 foot soldiers who drew the sword. Now the children of Benjamin heard that the children of Israel had gone up to Mizpah. Then the children of Israel said,
Tell us, how did this wicked deed happen?
So the Levite, the husband of the woman who was murdered, answered,
My concubine and I went into Gibeah, which belongs to Benjamin, to spend the night, and the men in Gibeah rose against me and surrounded the house at night because of me. They intended to kill me, but instead they ravished my concubine so that she died. So I took hold of my concubine, cut her in pieces, and sent her throughout all the territory of the inheritance of Israel, because they committed lewdness and outrage in Israel. Look, all of you are children of Israel. Give your advice and counsel here and now.
So all the people arose as one man.
None of us will go to his tent, nor will any turn back to his house. But now this is the thing which we will do to Gibeah. We will go up against it by lot. We will take 10 men out of every 100 throughout all the tribes of Israel, 100 out of every 1,000, and 1,000 out of every 10,000 to make provisions for the people, that when they come to Gibeah in Benjamin, they may repay all the vileness that they have done in Israel.
So all the men of Israel were gathered against the city, united together as one man. Then the tribes of Israel sent men through all the tribe of Benjamin, saying,
What is this wickedness that has occurred among you? Now therefore, deliver up the men, the perverted men who are in Gibeah, that we may put them to death and remove the evil from Israel.
But the children of Benjamin would not listen to the voice of their brethren, the children of Israel. Instead, the children of Benjamin gathered together from their cities to Gibeah to go to battle against the children of Israel. And from their cities at that time, the children of Benjamin numbered 26,000 men who drew the sword, besides the inhabitants of Gibeah, who numbered 700 select men. Among all this people were 700 select men who were left-handed. Everyone could sling a stone at a hair's breadth and not miss. Now, besides Benjamin, the men of Israel numbered 400,000 men who drew the sword. All of these were men of war. Then the children of Israel arose and went up to the house of God to inquire of God,
Which of us shall go up first to battle against the children of Benjamin?
The Lord said,
Judah first.
So the children of Israel rose in the morning and encamped against Gibeah. And the men of Israel went out to battle against Benjamin. And the men of Israel put themselves in battle array to fight against them at Gibeah. Then the children of Benjamin came out of Gibeah, and on that day cut down to the ground 22,000 men of the Israelites. And the people, that is, the men of Israel, encouraged themselves, and again formed the battle line at the place where they had put themselves in array on the first day. Then the children of Israel went up and wept before the Lord until evening, and asked counsel of the Lord.
Shall I again draw near for battle against the children of my brother Benjamin?
And the Lord said,
Go up against him.
So the children of Israel approached the children of Benjamin on the second day. And Benjamin went out against them from Gibeah on the second day, and cut down to the ground 18,000 more of the children of Israel. All these drew the sword. Then all the children of Israel, that is, all the people, went up and came to the house of God and wept. They sat there before the Lord and fasted that day until evening. And they offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before the Lord. So the children of Israel inquired of the Lord. The ark of the covenant of God was there in those days, and Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, stood before it in those days.
Shall I yet again go out to battle against the children of my brother Benjamin? Or shall I cease?
And the Lord said,
Go up, for tomorrow I will deliver them into your hand.
Then Israel set men in ambush all around Gibeah. And the children of Israel went up against the children of Benjamin on the third day, and put themselves in battle array against Gibeah, as at the other times. So the children of Benjamin went out against the people, and were drawn away from the city. They began to strike down and kill some of the people, as at the other times, in the highways, one of which goes up to Bethel and the other to Gibeah, and in the field, about 30 men of Israel. And the children of Benjamin said,
They are defeated before us, as at first.
But the children of Israel said,
Let us flee and draw them away from the city to the highways.
So all the men of Israel rose from their place and put themselves in battle array at Baal Tamar. Then Israel's men in ambush burst forth from their position in the plain of Geba. And 10,000 select men from all Israel came against Gibeah, and the battle was fierce. But the Benjamites did not know that disaster was upon them. The Lord defeated Benjamin before Israel. And the children of Israel destroyed that day 25,100 Benjamites. All these drew the sword. So the children of Benjamin saw that they were defeated. The men of Israel had given ground to the Benjamites because they relied on the men in ambush whom they had set against Gibeah. And the men in ambush quickly rushed upon Gibeah. The men in ambush spread out and struck the whole city with the edge of the sword. Now the appointed signal between the men of Israel and the men in ambush was that they would make a great cloud of smoke rise up from the city, whereupon the men of Israel would turn in battle. Now Benjamin had begun to strike and kill about 30 of the men of Israel, for they said,
Surely they are defeated before us. as in the first battle.
But when the cloud began to rise from the city in a column of smoke, the Benjamites looked behind them. There was the whole city going up in smoke to heaven. And when the men of Israel turned back, the men of Benjamin panicked, for they saw that disaster had come upon them. Therefore they turned their backs before the men of Israel in the direction of the wilderness. But the battle overtook them, and whoever came out of the cities they destroyed in their midst. They surrounded the Benjamites, chased them, and easily trampled them down as far as the front of Gibeon toward the east. And 18,000 men of Benjamin fell. All these were men of valor. Then they turned and fled toward the wilderness to the rock of Rimmon, and they cut down 5,000 of them on the highways. Then they pursued them relentlessly up to Gidom and killed 2,000 of them. So all who fell of Benjamin that day were 25,000 men who drew the sword. All these were men of valor. But 600 men turned and fled toward the wilderness to the rock of Rimmon, and they stayed at the rock of Rimmon for 4 months. And the men of Israel turned back against the children of Benjamin and struck them down with the edge of the sword from every city, men and beasts, all who were found. They also set fire to all the cities they came to.
Okay.
Very uplifting.
It's, I mean, put you in the Christmas spirit. Like that's,
Black Friday.
yeah. So, all right, what did you think? There's a lot of numbers in here.
Well, if they were going to be destroyed eventually, then why were they allowed to win the first 2 battles?
What, Benjamin?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're talking about in the previous chapters, or like
First chapter.
like so yeah, okay.
2 days they won, and then
Yeah.
They never slighted.
Well, I think
smoked.
Smoked.
yeah, smoke. Well, I think
You're tired.
I think well, it's a civil war.
Ethnic cleansing.
It's a civil war. Like that's, and I think there's some subtleties going on here with Israel's willingness to utterly destroy Benjamin that isn't seen by the other people who are not of the same family earlier in the book. Like there's a dedication to it in this one that is not, and I think that's a pretty loud story that's being told right there.
In the beginning, they talked about they threw out a 10% figure.
Oh yeah.
What was that all?
Well, I have a star there. He repeats. I don't know what it's about, but I have a joke that it's like he'll take 10 men out of every 100, and then he just keeps going, and then 10 out of every 100, 100 out of every 1,000. He could have just said 10 out of 100. Like that's he was doing
1,000 out of 10.
Yeah, we're 1,000 out of 10,000. He didn't have to keep saying it's like you can do math, we get it, and that's. But it's I kind of thought that was like funny in here. I don't know what that is about. 10 has a sense of being, like when you see 10s, usually it's like almost like the way I like to describe it is like an exclamation point. So like numbers in the Bible, for those of you that don't remember or anything like that, the way I kind of understand numbers, and I could be wrong about this, but like they're like emojis, like that's so like lately, Ed and Kathy over there have discovered emojis, right? And on their keyboards, and then the text messages, and so they'll send a text and then a bunch of emojis, and it's like, all right, so what do these mean? And like that's which is great. That's why they're there. The numbers I think are kind of like that. Where it's the meanings are there, but they're it's kind of a more creative
Emphasized.
way. Yeah, emphasized way of doing this. That's the point of emojis. Like that's it. It's and so that's I think so. 10 kind of has what I call an exclamation point emoji. You could say that it is. It's kind of like yes type of thing. But I don't know what it's doing there. And also all the numbers here, they don't all follow the rules of all the numbers that I have. I picked out a couple of them which I thought were interesting. But so I don't really know what to do with that. That's he's talking about verse 10.
And my Bible footnote says that one man was responsible for providing food for 9 men fighting at the front.
Oh, okay.
That doesn't address the other numbers, the 100 or the 1,000.
That's interesting. But that would make sense though. It's the same ratio.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll take 10 men out of every 100, all that.
I don't know. I read this and I thought of the numbers, and to your point, whoever it was, about why did the first 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of just looked at it in the same way you look at Gideon. I mean, God wanted to make sure the people knew he was the one that gave it to him and not them.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were destroyed the first 2 days, and he kept sending them back. And then the third day he said, but I will give them to you today. And so after being defeated twice, they won, and the Lord said, I will give them to you. So I think they lost a lot of people and then succeeded when God said, I'll be with you. I'll do it. But that's how I interpret
Quite a
it.
price to pay, though.
Well, it is, but,
40,000.
Yeah. So you get the 40,000. So there's also, it mentions at the beginning that has 400,000 foot soldiers, and then the 40,000. Like that's
1 in 10.
another 1 in 10. Also, but you had the 4,000. Like, so I don't know what the 4,000 means here. I think I've got it for when Jesus feeds the 4,000 as Gentiles. It's like every corner of the world, like the 4 corners of the world. I don't know if that phrasing is this old, type of thing. But I'm wondering if that's kind of like world class army type of thing. I don't know. And so, but I made a note of it. What else stood out to you?
Why didn't the Benjaminites give over the people that did all the nasty stuff, and then they wouldn't have been fighting like that?
Yeah.
They refused to acknowledge that those men were evil.
Yeah.
And they should have turned them over in the beginning, don't you think?
Yeah.
Well, that's the sin of tribalism, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
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 We all kind of gravitate towards our tribes even when they're doing something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the
My country right along.
Mm-hmm. We were like that's it's real easy. It's real easy to fall into that, and like emotional intelligence, is like, well, let's weed out the bad out of whatever, our own tribe or theirs type of thing. But that's typically not how we think about stuff.
They were like not even acknowledging that this was an evil thing they did.
Yeah.
I just didn't get that part.
Yeah. Let's see. So I think there's that. I underlined the phrase in verse 13 that was, it's like, now therefore deliver up the men, the perverted men who are in Gibeah, that we may put them to death and remove the evil from Israel. But their children, and that's what you're talking about. But the children of Israel, Benjamin, would not. I just thought that phrasing, "remove the evil from Israel," is, and I don't know if this is what the text is saying, but when is removing? At what point have you removed enough? And I'm wondering if Benjamin is worried about that. Like you start it, and then like, well, we'll have those too, type of thing, and those as well, and then those, like that. That's, when is enough. But I don't know if I'm just reading into the story there. Like that's verse 15. I didn't know what to do with this number, but 26,000 men. Like that's a weird number. But it does say in verse 16 that, there's right before 15, right at the end of 15, going on to 16, there were 700 select men. Among all these people were 700 select men who were left-handed. So everyone could sling a stone. Yeah. Like, so they're backwards. Like it's like special fighting forces.
The Jewish Study Bible says that they were able to fight with both hands.
Yeah. So it's like and you see that take place in a few places in Judges. Like Ehud, remember Ehud? Like when he killed the king that was fat and all that, he had a left-handed sword. And we still have this same kind of thinking today. I mean, that's what the handshake is, if you remember. Mm-hmm. The handshake is a medieval, or whatever you want to say, like that, sign of peace, because if you're shaking your hand with another knight, you can't use that hand to run a knife through them, right, or a sword through them. So
unless you're left-handed.
Yeah, unless you're left-handed, and so like that's, and so and that's kind of, so it's not the first time we meet this kind of. So this is kind of elite fighting force, and it's 700, and 7 kind of has a connotation emoji of all, kind of 7 days of creation, fullness, complete, like all that kind of sense to it. So what else? What else? You guys are popular today.
Among all of these were 700 chosen men who were left-handed.
Yeah.
Every one could sling a stone in the air and not miss.
That elite fighting force. Yeah.
So that's like an emoji in back of that left-handed.
Yeah, and that 7 kind of has a complete idea, a completeness idea. What else stood out to you? We're starting to get into where I started getting uncomfortable. But what else kind of stood out to you here?
I thought it was interesting, verse 35, that the number was so precise, 25,100.
Oh yeah, and that's a number. I have no idea what to do with that number. Like, I can't emojify that one at all. Like that's, and especially with the 100 on it. Like you just don't see that, like you say, like that precise of numbers too much.
John, I'm in the middle of Bible study.
100 in of itself doesn't have significance for you.
100 is kind of related to like 10, and 25, like that. It's 5 times 5, and 5 is Pentateuch.
You pull my leg now.
No, I'm not, because like that's what I did with verse 25. Verse 25, 18,000. We're cut down. That's 666. Like that's like that. It's all these things. You can't go too deep into the numbers, because then you'll become like our good friend Ronald Wineland that we talked about last Sunday, and all of a sudden you got the day the Lord is coming back. You can't go too deep into them. That's why I like calling them emojis. But they're playing those numbers constantly. Like they're using them in senses. I mean, how fast Ed got that one? Like you got exactly the same thing I did. like that's So like that's, and I don't know what that means. Six doesn't mean evil. A lot of people think it means evil. It's incomplete. So that's usually man's number. And so like in Revelation when it talks about like the 666, that's like man's, like it's incompleteness. It's not perfect yet. So that's kind of what's going on there.
We need to rest on that seventh day.
Yeah, exactly. So
rest today.
So what else kind of stood out to you here?
Well, all the tribes of Israel were in agreement except for the tribe of Benjamin.
Yeah, and that's the Civil War part, and that's and we'll get into. Well, before we start talking about that, I want to verse 40 at the very end of it, and the Benjamites looked behind them, and there was the whole city going up in smoke to heaven. Yeah. Did the Jewish Study Bible say anything about that?
Pillar of smoke.
Pillar of smoke. Okay, so is there a note on it or anything? Because that's
to the sky.
To the sky. Okay, so they must not do anything with that because that sounds familiar. Like that's like pillar of cloud, pillar of smoke. Like it sounds like Exodus stuff, like all that. But I may be looking into that too much. But it was just. I was like, that's weirdly specific, like that like just verbiage there.
Again, the other instances of smoke are the connotation is positive. Christ ascending.
Yeah.
This is not positive.
No, it's not. That's not, and that's why this is interesting. And so we have. I just have a bunch of numbers here at the end. 34 has 18,000 men of Benjamin fell. There's that 18 again. And all of these were men of valor. Let's see here. Cut down 5,000 of them on the highways. And 600 men turned and fled towards the wilderness. That's verse 47. Like those are all significant numbers. 5, 6, the 18, if 666 is valid there, like it's not like, but there's all these random numbers too. But what really bothers me about this section, and I don't know what to do about it, is, well, at least I have a hunch, is how they're talking to the Lord, and the Lord's like, go ahead and do it. Like that's.
But sometimes we kid ourselves that this is what God wants us to do.
Yeah.
And Israel's at the point where they're killing each other. So I need to justify this. We're good at justification.
Yeah.
We're very good at that.
Well, and we're going to get more into the story here, but it talks about how much they decimate it here. But like they didn't really decimate the Philistines earlier in the book. And I think that's something that we're supposed to see. That they are, God told them earlier to do something, they didn't do it, and now they're destroying each other. And so I don't know if that's a valid reading or not, but it kind of, I don't know. You want to say something? I can tell. No.
Okay.
Okay.
I was just making a reference in here. Your column of smoke rising is the same reference. It's in Joshua in chapter 8 when they destroyed the city of Ai.
Oh, okay. All right. So that's really
exactly
similar.
The same thing.
It's exactly
a pillar of smoke going up, and they turn back and see it, and then they try to return to the city.
Okay.
So it's exactly the same.
Okay.
Situation. I don't know why. It was another ambush.
Yeah, well, that would be like that's some very visual images of kind of thing. Well, and that's in this I can see a lot of Joshua like going on in this section of it. That's why I'm kind of bringing up like Joshua is known for like their conquest, but for all that they have to get rid of all the Philistines over and over and over again, which means they're not getting rid of them. Yeah.
These are like sneak attacks. All of them.
Yeah.
Jericho. This one, sneak attack.
Yeah.
They put a small group behind. They go out and fight. Draw them out of the city and.
Yeah. So, Kathy, you were about to say something.
Tail wagging the dog scenario.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what initiated this? What was the cause? It was the death of the concubine of the Levite.
Oh yeah. Like the Levite, and then they destroyed the Levite city, and like just evil, like bad stuff.
It was like they wanted that. It's like the straw that broke the camel's back, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That there was other things that were really wrong going on, and this was just like the aha moment.
Mm-hmm.
That's just me.
And this, I wrote a note, like I wrote Joseph at one point where it's Benjamin by himself again. So Benjamin is the one. So remember, Joseph and Benjamin had the same mother from Jacob Israel. That they have the same mother, whereas Leah is the mother of all the others. And so here Benjamin's being kind of secluded, like Joseph was almost. Like there's some significance in the story there. I don't know how to take it, but that's part. It's almost like they're doing the same thing again. It's like a weird bastardization of the story of Joseph and his brothers, like this one, where his brothers went to kill him, and so like that's an interesting wrinkle in the story. Yeah. We gotta keep it going.
48.
Yeah.
Where it talks about killing everything, the cattle, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Saul didn't. Saul kept the cattle.
Yeah.
So
Well, and also in Joshua.
It plays into what you said. They didn't do it with the Philistines, but they're doing it with the Benjamins.
They're doing it with their brothers.
Yeah.
You know, like which isn't good. So all right, so let's go to chapter 21. It's the last chapter here. So here we go. It says my screen is loading. There it is. All right. Let's see what kind of cheery good news we can get in this one.
Now the men of Israel had sworn an oath at Mizpah.
None of us shall give his daughter to Benjamin as a wife.
Then the people came to the house of God and remained there before God till evening. They lifted up their voices and wept bitterly.
O Lord God of Israel, why has this come to pass in Israel, that today there should be one tribe missing in Israel?
So it was, on the next morning, that the people rose early and built an altar there, and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. The children of Israel said,
Who is there among all the tribes of Israel who did not come up with the assembly to the Lord?
For they had made a great oath concerning anyone who had not come up to the Lord at Mizpah, saying, He shall surely be put to death. And the children of Israel grieved for Benjamin, their brother.
One tribe is cut off from Israel today. What shall we do for wives for those who remain, seeing we have sworn by the Lord that we will not give them our daughters as wives? What one is there from the tribes of Israel who did not come up to Mizpah to the Lord?
And in fact, no one had come to the camp from Jabesh Gilead to the assembly. For when the people were counted, indeed, not one of the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead was there. So the congregation sent out there 12,000 of their most valiant men and commanded them, saying,
Go and strike the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead with the edge of the sword, including the women and children. And this is the thing you shall do. You shall utterly destroy every male and every woman who has known a man intimately.
So they found among the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead 400 young virgins who had not known a man intimately. And they brought them to the camp at Shiloh, which is in the land of Canaan. Then the whole congregation sent word to the children of Benjamin who were at the rock of Rimmon, and announced peace to them. So Benjamin came back at that time, and they gave them the women whom they had saved alive of the women of Jabesh Gilead. And yet they had not found enough for them. And the people grieved for Benjamin, because the Lord had made a void in the tribes of Israel. Then the elders of the congregation said,
What shall we do for wives, for those who remain, since the women of Benjamin have been destroyed?
There must be an inheritance for the survivors of Benjamin, that a tribe may not be destroyed from Israel. However, we cannot give them wives from our daughters, for the children of Israel have sworn an oath, saying, Cursed be the one who gives a wife to Benjamin. In fact, there is a yearly feast of the Lord in Shiloh, which is north of Bethel on the east side of the highway that comes up from Bethel to Shechem and south of Lebanon.
Therefore they instructed the children of Benjamin,
Go lie in wait in the vineyards and watch. And just when the daughters of Shiloh come out to perform their dances, then come out from the vineyards, and every man catch a wife for himself from the daughters of Shiloh. Then go to the land of Benjamin. Then it shall be, when their fathers or their brothers come to us to complain, that we will say to them, Be kind to them for our sakes, because we did not take a wife for any of them in the war. For it is not as though you have given the women to them at this time, making yourselves guilty of your oath.
And the children of Benjamin did so. They took enough wives for their number from those who danced, whom they caught. Then they went and returned to their inheritance, and they rebuilt the cities and dwelt in them. So the children of Israel departed from there at that time, every man to his tribe and family. They went out from there, every man to his inheritance. In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes.
And there, like you can tell that it's not. It is not. It's not wanting you to look at this and go, "This was righteous."
Yeah, Israel has turned itself into a dog's breakfast.
Yeah, yeah. So like that's.
My father-in-law used to say that.
Did you like him?
He also had another one about dogs that
Let's see. I don't know what is. Are there any notes? Anyone about these daughters of Shiloh, the dancers? I don't know what that's talking about.
It doesn't necessarily say they're virgins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Let's see.
The ones that were dancing. Yeah, the ones that were out there dancing.
It doesn't like this. This doesn't say anything. Like it just says that they were involved in the worship, and then it starts talking about how there weren't any female priests.
I have an interesting note.
Yeah.
The fathers would not have violated the vow because they did not intentionally give their daughters to the Benjamites. The Benjamites just took them. As we see in the verse, we see the Israelites legalistically manipulation of the letter of the law. Ironically, what began as an attempt to punish the rape and murder of one woman ended with the punishers engineering the rape of 600 women and the murder of thousands.
Yeah.
Dog's breakfast.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like, and it's one of those things where it's like when you're looking away, is it solving a problem that you want? And so, yeah, I wrote the note next to that. I wrote feckless. That's one of my favorite things when I'm talking about leadership. Feckless leaders, and like that's just what they are. Like that's there's no leadership. They're making decisions looking this far out. You know, and so like that's and they're just like, oh, now we've got this new problem. I guess we shouldn't have killed them all.
Does that sound familiar?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's when you look at things this far out, you know, that's you're always in an emergency then.
Well,
you know.
Yeah, as is the case now.
Oh yeah.
With Israel.
Well, in Israel, I mean, everything. I mean, from business to how we deal with people to everything. It's always this far out. And so what else did you notice here was
Yeah, they were oh, look at what we did to the Benjamites, but okay, let's go do this to this other place now.
Yeah.
Make up your mind here.
Yeah. It's just so much ugliness.
Please.
And everyone did?
Yeah, that line just says it all.
Line sums it all up, doesn't it?
Yeah. And that end line is where it's all at.
But stuff like that goes on now in Africa. Oh, yeah, okay, let's go steal daughters from the school and hey, catch us if you can.
That's
and in Haiti.
In Haiti. Well, well, like that's like Haiti. You know, we have that orphanage we've been talking about. One of the reasons why, so if let's say we wanted to bring those girls into the U.S., because we've talked about it, it would probably take about 7 years, 5 to 7 years. The reason why is that Haiti became a big trafficking area for a little bit, and child trafficking, and so that's just the government just slowed it down to a halt, you know, to deal with that. That's
slave trade.
Yeah, you know, and so that's kind of that's one of the reasons why it's so slow. That and barely have a government right now. It's that. They're all just feckless leaders, and this whole book gets us down to a point where they destroy themselves. Like that. And I think that's what this book gets them to, is that they're doing what is right in their own eyes, and they get to the point where they destroy themselves. I've never looked at Judges that way, but I think that's right. Where they don't destroy the people that will do them harm, but they will gladly, I guess not gladly, but they will, under the compulsion of righteousness, kill their brothers and sisters. And then when they end up in trouble because of that, they will look away, which I love this line here, verse 22, then it shall be, when their fathers, who, you know, of the women that are dancing, their fathers come to complain and say, be kind to them for our sakes. You know, we're like, oh, sorry, you know, our hands are tied.
Yeah, we had to do something.
Yeah, we had to do something. Like that's, like it's bad. And the thing is what's also interesting about this is that there's all this previous history in the story already about this. So, gosh, what's her name? Abraham's and the servant of Sarah. Yeah. What's her servant? It's Ishmael's mom. Hagar. Yeah, Hagar. Like that relationship is not too dissimilar to these these women dancers. Like Sarah can't have a child, so here, take this woman who has no agency and go have sex with her, I'm sure of her own will. You know, like there's deep history in this. There's deep history in this, and I think it's meant to call us back to all of this history, and I think the silver lining in this, and so I will quote the great Tim Mackey here, is that this is about Israel's total failure, and that's the point. But there's still hope. You know, like that's, and as we contemplate our own failure, so that you could definitely, I think it's very valid that as we look at the end here, we can see how Jacob / Israel's sons treated Joseph, and that this thing with Benjamin, and Joseph was braggadocious, flaunting his fancy coat around, with so many colors and things like that. Like that, you could say, the Benjamin had it coming by what they were doing and all that stuff. Like, it's easy to say all that, and yet it's alarmingly similar, and you see and hear, and so when we're left to our own devices and our own feckless wills, that we end up just destroying one another, right? Like that's, and the thing is, though, is in the midst of that total corruption and destroying and failure that we even see and we've all been talking about how we see this today, and everywhere. You don't have to turn on, well, you shouldn't turn on the 24-hour news, but you know what I mean. You don't have to go so far into it to see similar tactics being played and all of this stuff. Is that God is still there. And you have a very weird book right after this. I don't know, is Ruth right after this in the Hebrew Bible? So it goes straight into Samuel in the Hebrew Bible. Okay, so that makes even more sense. Yeah. And so Ruth is going to be probably after all the king narratives. So the way the Hebrew Bible is set up, it goes straight into Samuel, where you begin the story. And we just went through that just a little bit ago. You begin that story, and it's just everything's a mess. And they begin wanting the king, and they find out that the king doesn't really save them. And you see David is eating his young again then too at the very end. And then Solomon falls, and like all that stuff. Like, that's what's fascinating about all these stories in the Old Testament, is not how it's these people that we need to laud and magnify, but it's that in the midst of the struggle, that God is still there and leading him through. And that, for our own selves, when we have done disturbing things and have caught and hurt other people and not have lived up to the life that we should have, that God has not just completely abandoned us. That if God did not abandon Israel in this moment for replaying the Joseph narrative, then I think he won't abandon us either. And that's kind of how I see this book playing out. And I think, like, as I'm sitting here putting this all together, and listen, what I'm saying right now is completely self-serving, because I'm going to watch this again before we do the sermons for the sermon series coming up. So I'm making notes, like, just physically right now, that Samson, the way we looked at Samson, at least the way I looked at Samson, is that Samson was a story about Israel. That he refused to handle the Philistines, that he refused to handle all these things, and even played the harlot with the Philistines, right? Like with Delilah and all that stuff, and that wink wink nudge nudge, Israel even plays with them so much so that God's like, well, you can just be those outsiders, and they are taken captive by all that. Like, it all plays into this same narrative where you see that, where the big bad Samson actually becomes Santa. I'm getting ready for Christmas, and so that he comes in, and dare I say that he is almost like a Christ figure. And what I mean by that is that Jesus is the one true Israelite. That is how he is referenced, and that Jesus is the one where all the sin is placed, and so all the sin and badness and all of that, like the cross is not a clean spot, and that's why I think that cry of Jesus on the cross, quoting Psalm 22 when he says, my God, why have you forsaken me? Like it's talking from the midst of the struggle and the despair, and that's almost recalling David's sin and, all those things. That like the cross isn't the clean spot. And so I wouldn't say, I say it with hesitation, but that Samson at the end is almost like a picture of the glory of Christ and the toppling of evil. I say that with hesitation, all right? But you have that this kind of outlook on all this. So Samson played the harlot, never got rid of the Philistines, all those things, and yet we see Israel, which Samson is representing, completely and utterly destroy themselves. And even their solution to provide wives for those that are destroyed ends up in hurt and pain and people complaining. They even have provision for people complaining. And yet God does not leave them. And I think that's the little mini sermon right there. Anyone want to complain about what I said? You can, you can, like that's, I won't listen. I won't listen. Like that's, but yeah, so I think that's Judges. And so, yeah, we can end right there. That's cool. I'm glad we went through Judges. That's a thing going forward. So, all right. I don't know if we're going to do this, but let's talk about the future for just a few seconds here. Well, let me say goodbye to everyone online. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Sue, you could stay.